It's 2022. I'm sitting in a small room with other journalists watching CM Punk have a public meltdown. In 15 minutes, he'll unsuccessfully try to punch an executive. He's there now in the future, commanding his friend to throw a chair. Back in the press room, he asks me something he already knows. In the infinite possible combinations of words in all of the spoken human languages, there is but only one possible answer to his question. You tell me.
It's May 2024. I've recently arrived back home from a close friend's wedding, the aftermath of which has me evaluating life and all of its esoteric constructs. Why do I do this? In the face of the love, admiration, and celebration of my friend's wedding, I find myself here in the KVTV broadcast studios, documenting the misadventures of one of professional wrestling's most controversial journalists. Paid athletes and executives seethe and praise this San Jose-based journalist simultaneously. This loaded and controversial legacy serves as a Rorschach test. It reveals one's wrestling ideology and thus inspires the corresponding emotional reaction. I don't hate Dave. I don't even dislike him. Yet I find myself frustrated, upset at his human biases, while simultaneously relating to him heavily. I enjoy his regular sessions of punching down on Twitter, in particular the time he ethered a man, essentially telling him to hit the weights, fatty. However, simultaneously, I despise his disingenuous, seemingly paid defense of Tony Khan and his incoherent vision. It is for these reasons that in my esoteric cloud, I've come out the other side, and I've found Dave Meltzer to be the closest living cultural analog to Dr. Manhattan. Dispassionate, rigid, yet simultaneously disconnected from reality, Dave chooses to report things in non-linear fashion. For example, a segment featuring The Rock and Triple H for over 10 years ago is considered fertile ground to report as if it just happened. Perhaps Dave has more pressing metaphysical matters to attend to, dimensions to peer within, and styles of wrestling to defend. Much like Dr. John Osterman, Dave began his career as a studious observer, a man whose unbelievable attention to detail bordered on the supernatural, and it resembled that of a watchmaker. Dave knew the pieces of the puzzle that made wrestling what it is, and he began one of its first attempts to document the industry and its happenings. The respect Dave began to garner from the world was remarkable, and he began to represent a cultural apex, an autistic Ubermensch, and perhaps his most epic public moment taking place on Phil Donahue's stage in 1992.
So you were devastated when Hulk Hogan made those statements on Arsenio?
I wasn't devastated.
That was the word used to me.
Well, all right.
One may be tempted to view Dave Meltzer as a above-it-all deity, an apathetic and unbiased observer. But once again, a man can never be a god. Even Dr. Manhattan once felt true love. It was a tragic love he had for Janie Slater, and it was a love that cost him his public reputation. The same can be said for Dave's love of Nick and Matt Jackson, the Young Bucks. The torrid love affair between Dave Meltzer and the Jackson brothers has manifested in the Bucks naming their tag maneuver after him, calling it the Meltzer Driver. It was a move that reflected their mutual devotion, a call to arms to their love, but it began to show the cracks in Dave Meltzer's omnipresent view.
Trick isn't that good.
Well, he's got a ways to go.
That's the reality. He's got incredible charisma, but you put him in a main event match. And granted, he did look really good with Ilya, but Ilya is one of those people that he gives you a false perception of the ability of the other person.
That's definitely one way to put it.
Yeah.
He can have an incredible match with anybody.
It's like
anybody.
It's like wrestling Ric Flair or a tag team wrestling the Young Bucks. They always look better somehow. Like you watch all these tag teams against the Young Bucks. My God, these guys are great, but they're never great against anybody else.
Much like the tachyon particles clouding Dr. Manhattan's vision of the future, the notorious star ratings of Dave Meltzer began to enter his temporal view and erode his credibility. It seemed much like Manhattan's troubling proclamations about the irrelevance of living beings. Dave began to disregard impartiality while hiding behind the guise of it. As Manhattan drifted further and further away from reality, he began to make sweeping proclamations, displaying emotional apathy and insensitivity while displaying some unreal human blind spots of his own. Take, for example, the main event of WrestleMania 40, a match acclaimed for its payoff and satisfying conclusion, and it was a match that inspired countless. But according to Dave, the truest of art is derived from mostly comfy arenas, for the cold chill of no crowd allows for the art to be appreciated in its most potent form. The comfy atmosphere of the dusty rafters, the distinct musk emanating from what little seats are sold. You see, this is true beauty. This is true art. Perhaps Dave sees it as all the same. Maybe humans are simply insignificant, and any differences we perceive within another are best solved with our absence. Perhaps Dave believes an empty arena is much how Dr. Manhattan sees Mars, untouched by shopping malls, untouched by big business, or business in general. Perhaps it's all just a little too much noise for Dave. Perhaps at the end of all of it, he wishes for nothing more than to be left alone.
I said, leave me alone!
Perhaps Dave is tired of dimes and those who pay them. Maybe he's caught. Maybe he's tired of being caught in the tangle of their lives. As we stand now, the tachyon particles emanating from the Young Bucks have blinded Dave's vision to such an extent that he believes Trick Williams, who has had thousands of sold-out arenas chant his name, is, to use his words, not really that good. On what he has to base such a ridiculous statement is imperceivable to the layman. He is tired of fans. He is tired of being caught in the tangle of their opinions. He's managed to alienate most within the industry, particularly after dutifully reporting the character assassination of CM Punk, regularly burying Jim Cornette, and then immediately emailing him to reminisce about previous eras of wrestling.
Suddenly, he couldn't fucking stay off of me, and he was telling a bunch of people that I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about because I didn't like his favorite wrestlers. And that's when I told him, what the fuck? If this is the way it's going to be, then we're done. Quit emailing me. We're not friends because you are slandering me for no good reason in the public eye, and I ain't going to put up with it. And then he'd email me about, I heard your show last week. You did a really great political commentary. And I'd be emailed back, fuck you, because you used to be my friend and you're not anymore because you slander me. So leave me the fuck alone.
Time happens simultaneously for Dave, much like Dr. Osterman before him. And finally, being almost single-handedly responsible for Eric Bischoff's blood pressure spikes.
It was revealed that Tony Khan is still furious at Jack Perry and holds him solely responsible for AEW losing CM Punk. And Brian Alvarez has a tweet from about a month ago. Jack Perry disputes apologizing for CM Punk fight, was denied AEW release request. I don't know what happened. I don't know what didn't happen. But that feels like a little co-opted media support there to me.
Are you kidding me? I mean, Tony Khan and Dave Meltzer are psychologically symbiotic. They're joined at the hip. They think the same. They like the same things. One of the reasons, if you've been following Meltzer at all on social media, this mucker father's cracking like an egg. I mean, every time he posts, it's him responding to somebody who's actually listened to something he said or read something he said, points out the flaws in it, and then Dave proceeds to say, well, you obviously don't read. Or you obviously didn't listen closely enough. You didn't get the context. No, motherfucker, you don't know how to write. You have the communication skills of a fucking 14-year-old. And it's impossible to understand what you write because you fucking write like a 14-year-old that's never been to an English class. It's horrible. It's vertigo-inducing bullshit. But they like the same. It's chat room wrestling. I imagine Dave Meltzer is a god in a chat room.
If I was to speculate, part of what I believe has rendered people confused and upset about Dave Meltzer is that his whole dream vision of wrestling, that being AEW, has been so thoroughly shown to not work on a mass televised scale. His theories he devised carefully in this paper-strewn, crowded office in San Jose have been put to the test, and they've cleared the arenas like that of a nuclear holocaust. A charred cinder, like the surface of Mars. However, there may be hope. For it was once in the solemn, barren surface of Mars where Dr. Manhattan witnessed a miracle. Lori, being born of the bastard comedian, turned out to be the love of his life, and it shook him. It shook him from his slumber. It shook him from his apathy. It showed him miracles were real. And it changed everything. Hopefully, Dave sees a miracle. Something that so thoroughly breaks his biases. Something that frees him from the apathy and disorder plaguing his career and leads his opinions to a better metaphysical path. But for now, Dave is still a wrestling LOLCow. Whatever you do, whatever you decide to pull out of your ass and report as fact, just always remember to keep it Kino. Because your life is cinema.